The oil industry undertook coordinated research into many subjects relevant to the causes and impacts of climate change. When the major petroleum companies began expanding their operations offshore into the Gulf of Mexico in the 1940s, they realized that hurricanes posed a significant challenge to the safe and reliable operation of offshore oil rigs. In 1947, Humble Oil, now ExxonMobil, contracted with A.H. Glenn, a meteorological consultant, to develop wave and weather forecasting techniques. In a paper from 1951, Glenn notes that the oil industry is several years ahead of the other American industries in applying meteorology and oceanography. He further comments that even the government's own services in this space are too broad for industry needs and typically trail industry's own science by years. In 1956, the American Petroleum Institute initiated a research program that would last until 1962 to investigate the causes of and conditions preceding hurricane formation. Mercer Parks, the chairman of the program from Humble Oil, wrote a retrospective account of the project in 1963, where he outlined the advances made in the ability to predict hurricane formation based on current weather conditions. Another paper by M.M. Patterson of Shell Development Company describes a then ongoing 18-month project to collect ocean data from newly installed Shell oil platforms for the development and calibration of environmental forecasting theories. The joint project included participation from several major petroleum companies, including Shell Development Company, Esso Production Research Company, now ExxonMobil, Mobil Research and Development Company, now ExxonMobil, Pan American Petroleum Corporation, now BP, Gulf Oil Corporation, Texaco Incorporated, the Canadian Association of Geophysical Contractors Marine Region, and Chevron Oil Field Research Company. In addition to their research into hurricane formation, many of the major oil companies conducted research into paleoclimates and historical sea levels to better predict where reserves of offshore oil may be found. Research into the historical temperature record was sponsored by the American Petroleum Institute in 1950, and radiocarbon dating was being done at Humble Oil Laboratories by 1957. This research was undertaken against a backdrop of modest but growing awareness of the relationship between climate change and extreme weather events. In 1956, the Madera Daily News ran an article, "Carbon Dioxide May Contribute to Hurricanes," which discussed Roger Revelle's ongoing work and explained the theory that accumulating carbon dioxide in the atmosphere might be raising temperatures and contributing to an intensification of hurricanes. The same year, an article in Time magazine noted Roger Revelle's work and warned that rising temperatures could melt the ice caps of Antarctica and Greenland, which would flood the Earth's coastal lands. As experts in the science relevant to their products, it can be presumed that the oil and gas industries knew or should have known about these public discussions and the relevant science underlying them. In addition to studying the natural behavior of hurricanes, the oil industry also sponsored research into weather modification techniques. In the 1960s, for example, James Black of Esso, who would later warn Exxon executives of the dangers of rising carbon dioxide levels in the atmosphere, researched and patented techniques to trap heat and manipulate local weather conditions by covering large areas in asphalt. M.L. Corin, a consultant to Phillips Petroleum, and C.A. Stokes of City Service, now Citgo, co-authored a book-length report on the use of petroleum-based carbon dust in weather modification techniques at multiple geographic scales. Finally, the oil industry, for its own business motives, had a deep and profound understanding of the relationships between sea levels, atmospheric temperatures, and carbon in the environment. In 1961, for example, the American Petroleum Institute funded a study into the trends in sea level from 30,000 years before present to 7,000 years before present. The author discussed the relationship between the size of glaciers, global temperatures, and sea level, noting specifically that a rapid rise in sea level coincided with the warming of the climate. Sea level, on the other hand, rises during warm periods and falls during cold periods. If anyone would have understood how fossil fuel combustion and global warming were going to change the climate, it was this industry. It is clear that the purpose of the previously described research into hurricanes, sea level, and paleoclimate was not to investigate climate change, but rather to determine where to explore for oil. However, these research priorities arm the petroleum industry with cutting-edge knowledge about changes in sea levels and hurricanes, two natural phenomena implicated by climate change. The idea that accumulating carbon dioxide in the atmosphere could lead to increased hurricane formation and rising sea levels was being discussed openly in newspapers and magazines as early as 1956. While we cannot know for certain that the entire industry was aware of these theories, they had as much expertise in the field as any other industry, academia, or the government. Moreover, scientists hired by the American Petroleum Institute explicitly connected temperatures, glaciers, and sea levels in research paid for by the American Petroleum Institute. Given the advanced knowledge and expertise, it is fair to ask whether the major oil and gas companies and the petroleum industry as a whole knew or should have known about the emerging science focused on the relationship between fossil fuel combustion, global temperatures, sea levels, and extreme weather events.